Hello. Hello, this is the my artifact episode number 4084. Today's date is 2nd of June 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 6 8 806 806 a.m. Okay, let's just jump into the question. Let's go. All right. So question is how will pipeline connect smoothly? What's exactly the pipeline? Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to build a app called My Artifact. What exactly is this application? When you write the diary, you cannot able to be write the diary the way that you want it to. The reason is that your writing speed is much more slower. Why does writing speed is kind of like a slower? Is because of when you write a diary, you need a pen, you need a paper, you need a convenience, and even after that, you need a lot of effort to write something. Okay, it's a very precision task to write. So I thought that what if instead of writing a diary, what if we could record a diary? Like recording a diary, I call this recording diary. I call this artifact. The stuff that you are kind of like listening or seeing me right now. This is my artifact. My artifact episode number 4083. I am doing this thing for past 11 years. I am doing this thing every single day, and writing a diary or recording a diary or recording an artifact is a self reflection process. You actually connect with yourself more, and I actually connect with myself more with this artifact. The amount of value that I get from this artifact, I wanted to share this value. How do I supposed to be share? By building an application. My application is a somewhat something like a YouTube platform. In a YouTube platform, you actually kind of like upload your video. Other people kind of like see your video. Same thing, you actually upload your artifact. Other people kind of like listen your artifact. There is only one catch is that no one will gonna know your name. Like basically, my real name is Saurabh Bothare, but my artifact handle name would be Prozac 1943 or something else. So that kind of like a something, my identity is always been kept hidden. So this is my application. Before I want to build this application, I wanted to aware of all the possible consequences. So I went to ChatGPT. I tell my app idea and tell him that he suggests me at least like hundreds of all the possible consequences that might gonna happen, and I would be aware of that. So ChatGPT kind of like suggests me hundreds of question. This is one of those question. By the way, the question actually in the mobile phone, but while in the recording, I cannot do anything at all. So that's why I wrote my question in here. This is the question. Okay, so question is that sorry. The question is that how will pipeline connect smoothly? Okay, what's the pipeline? Um, all right. Let me tell you. Have you went to? Okay, if you are not from like an engineer or like a. Okay, let me tell you something. Okay, so how does kind of like a car manufactured? Um, have you heard the name called assembly line? You might gonna heard somewhere. Probably if you are engineer, you might gonna heard it. But if you are not, you might not gonna heard it. Okay, so what exactly is assembly line? So assembly line is a kind of like a things a line is actually move, and it actually move very slowly, very slowly. Probably maybe kind of like a something just kind of like a 1 inch per minute. Yeah, literally 1 inch per minute. This is very slow, and that is called assembly line. So what is actually in this particular thing actually happen? So car manufacturing assembly line, in this thing, that key particular worker is actually working on assembly line. They build a car, like first people who kind of like bring the tire or bring the structure of the car. Okay, yeah. Then that assembly line slowly move forward. Other people kind of like started working. It's a kind of like a things that na ki one person kind of like do work on that particular part. Then okay, one person kind of like do work on that particular part, particular car. That car is actually moved through assembly line, and there is another car. Okay, yeah, he work on that. Then this is the third car, so he work on that. The fourth car is work on that. So that assembly line is always been going, and that worker is actually continue doing kind of like his work, like attaching a windscreen on the car or things and that. So that is called assembly line. Okay, that assembly line is a very much efficient or very much really good. Why? Because of that key a worker do not, like, it does not really require to kind of like a move from this station to this station. No, he have to work on in its position. That's it. The car is actually move. Okay, yeah. So you do not have to go anywhere at all. But why does kind of like a worker does not move? Why does car move? Okay, if the car does not move and worker is kind of like a move, then what exactly happened? That the more amount of time that he spend on kind of like a going there and going there and going there and going there. Okay, yeah. It's a kind of like a things that na ki surgeon cannot perform the operation if doesn't really have a tool. So basically kind of like a team of surgeon who kind of like assist them can do this, take that. So basically surgeon kind of like do this thing. He really requires some sort of tool. He take it and he do this thing. If he kind of like find that tool to go somewhere else and kind of like get that tool, then probably if such thing happened, then probably that patient will gonna die. Okay, so the surgeon should supposed to be stay there, and the tool should supposed to be kind of like a somebody easy to access, that he could take grab it and kind of like do this thing. Same thing with the assembly line. A worker should supposed to be stay there and car actually move, so that worker does not kind of like go anywhere at all, and he just kind of like doing it. It increase the efficiency of the entire assembly line. No one actually moving, just a worker is kind of like doing, and the assembly line is a kind of like something just going forward. Okay, yeah. It increase the efficiency, it increase the kind of like a number of production with kind of like a less effort. So that is called kind of like a assembly line. Okay, yeah. That assembly line is also called as a pipeline too. Okay, yeah. A pipeline is a kind of like a how things actually happen. Like this happened, then this happened, like a in this happened like a windshield attach, in this happened dashboard attach, in this kind of like a station there is a kind of like a something that key camshaft attach or whatever it is. Okay, so every kind of like a station has a kind of like a do his thing to kind of like a make sure everything's actually happen very smoothly and things and that. Okay, so this is kind of like a something the assembly line or pipeline. Okay, so in my application, does I have kind of like any kind of like assembly line? Yeah, it is. I have assembly line. Okay. Let me tell you one thing. First of all, before I wanted to kind of like tell you, a car manufacturing company, a car is an output product. Okay, yeah. So they are actually focusing on creating more and more car. So this is their output. Okay, yeah. In my application, am I not building a car? Okay, but I need a kind of like a I'm kind of like a building a artifact. People should supposed to be record the artifact. So my final output is the artifact. Okay, so how it actually happening, how this actually happening, how the actual pipeline actually happening. Okay, yeah. So first of all, when the user wanted to record the artifact, he opened up my application, okay, and he could kind of like see the record button. He pressed that record button, okay. When he pressed the record button, then there is a kind of like a warning screen actually appear. That warning screen says, do not mention your name, your anything at all, do not mention your things and that and that. Why this screen actually appear? Because of that key beforehand, user should supposed to be know that what they shouldn't supposed to be say. Huh? Alright, so this warning screen is very much essential for kind of like a user to not to mention his name and things and that. Because let me tell you one thing now. Why does that warning screen actually appear? Because sometime, or maybe most of the time, what is actually happened that we are really excited to record artifact. What? Are we really excited to record artifact? Yeah. Okay, first of all, I don't really understand that why does people are really excited to record artifact. Okay, when you record the artifact, you actually connect with yourself more. You actually kind of like a feel like someone is kind of like a listening. Let me tell you one thing. Have you ever kind of like experienced that you need to say something but you don't really have anyone, or maybe in the kind of like assembly in the middle of the argument you might have a kind of like a really good point, but you don't really have like someone is not actually giving you opportunity to kind of like a talk and things and that. That is the kind of like a things we always wanted to say. We always wanted to kind of like a blunt out everything, like we just wanted that he get out, okay, like a sometime aggression, sometime angry, sometime kind of like a somebody logic, or sometime whatever it is, we just always wanted to get out, okay. We are like when we are trying to do communication, most of the people are actually communication focus on talking, okay, and they are wanted to talk. Have you ever kind of like experienced that people are kind of like somebody abrupt you in middle of kind of like a talking, okay. So this is what is actually happened, that people are love to express his thoughts, but the problem is that there is no one to listen, okay, yeah. And even if someone would kind of like a listen, that particular person does not really listen that much carefully, or maybe something else and things and that, okay. So this is kind of like a things, okay. Also, let me tell you one thing. Have you ever kind of like experienced that maybe your office manager kind of like a shouted at you something reason, you cannot able to be say anything at all because he's a manager. Now you come home and you are really frustrated and you really wanted to blunt out, okay, yeah. So this is what kind of like a things that creates excitement, okay, yeah. If you recorded artifact previously, then you are eagerly wanted to record artifact, because artifact is a kind of like a way that you press record and you just release everything, because sometime, okay, we don't need a communication, we just need to just let it go, let it out from our mind, okay. And that is very much kind of like a somebody being really human, we are always wanted to get out from our stuff inside our head, okay, because sometimes stress is kind of like happen when we cannot able to be express that, okay. So if the people who already record artifact and they know that how they feel when they record the artifact, then they will kind of like a something excited to press that record button and kind of like a things and that. Okay, another question: how does people will feel when they record the artifact? Like basically is this thing: a particular person is in stress, he talked to his girlfriend. Okay, particular person in stress, he record the artifact. Okay, so tell me that key, which one that particular person kind of like a feel really good to kind of like a talk. Obviously person who has a girlfriend, that particular person will kind of like express his thoughts and things and that, right? Artifact does not compete with the kind of like a humans, no, nothing really at all. Okay, but the problem is that na ki we don't really have a girlfriend, or we don't really have a boyfriend, or maybe is this thing that ki have it but very less, or also maybe if that girlfriend boyfriend that we have, she might not available or something else and things and that. So probability of having her and listening our stress and things and that is not actually kind of like a somebody that it exists, but very less, or maybe very less for the very less amount of people. Okay, yeah. And this is what kind of like things happen. There is a lot of kind of like a constraint and things and that. Okay, yeah. What about friend? Like why not we kind of like if I have a stress, then why not we kind of like express our thought with your friend? Okay, well, the problem is that na ki friend, like you will not gonna mention this thing with your family. Okay, if you are mentioning this thing really good, but the problem is that na whatever the stress that we have, we always try to hide it. Why? Because it consider we are vulnerable. Okay, I have a stress. Okay, and I will kind of like if I'm kind of like expressing my stress, dude, fuck ho gaya yaar mere साथ, things happen. It kind of like a people will like then kind of like a people will consider you that you are not so that much tough, or you are not so that much thing, you are very much fragile, or you are very much kind of like a things, because in society people are kind of like a simply cheer such a people who are strong and things and that. Everyone have their stress. It's not like that ki you have a stress and other people don't. Everyone have their stress. Okay, the problem is that ki they will not gonna share their vulnerability, like they are not really so good and things and that. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that ki very less people are actually exist, so that people would supposed to be share their vulnerable part. Okay, girlfriend, your significant other is the only person who could kind of like you could able to be share your vulnerability. Beside those people, you will not gonna share your vulnerability, you will not gonna share your how much vulnerable you are in front of your friend, or maybe in front of your family. Depends on stress and things and that there is a lot of them. So basically is this thing that ki almost like a maybe 1% of the people have that particular companion, so that they would supposed to be share their thoughts and feel really good. Okay, but 99% does not have that thing. There are so many kind of like a something that ki like consequences will gonna happen, that 99% does not really have that. I also does not really have that thing. Okay, because I have a kind of like a something what exactly happened, how I started the recording artifact. So basically is this thing, at 9th of February 2015, me and all my friends are actually went to kind of like a hill station for a trip. I have a kind of like a mobile phone called Moto G2, and it has a feature that while recording video you can capture a photo. And basically I wanted to capture the entire moment, so I was kind of like a recording plus taking photo. Also while recording video I will kind of like a zoom the video and then I will take the photo. But that photo, I does not know that that photo is just a snapshot, it's not a photo, it's just a snapshot of the video. And on the small screen that photo looks good, but when you see on big screen it kind of like a feel pixelated, because I already zoom in and things and that. So when my friend, and most of the photo I took it, so most of my friend kind of like say, what crappy photo that you took. Okay, Now I know it's a criticism is a very small, but at that time I was very vulnerable, because this is kind of like a thing is that now all my friends are kind of like a saying you are kind of like a destroy photos and this photo is not really good. Our trip is kind of like a somebody there is no kind of like a memory that we have to say to tell people things, because the photo is kind of like a things and that and that. No, my friends are kind of like a saying this thing, and I feel like a really like a little bit of something that keep like frustrated because of that because of I did some sort of mistake, and something happened. I know it's a very small thing, okay, yeah. I still kind of like feel like that how pathetic I was, but still at that time I was kind of like a very low, because my friend kind of like said this thing, you kind of like took very crappy photo, okay. Now I came home, and also at that time my kind of like a subject is got backlog too, okay. Backlog means I fail in multiple subjects. I was kind of like doing in engineering diploma. So basically I was kind of like getting a lot of stress, and because of I don't really have any girlfriend or any companion, so I started recording artifact, okay. And this is most of the time actually happened with the people that people have kind of like somebody doesn't really have any kind of like a companion and things and that maybe 1% of the people have, but 99% of the people does not really have that companion. They wanted to share their thoughts, they wanted to share their vulnerability and things and that, but they cannot. And that's where the artifact came. Artifact, that's why artifact has a privacy, that key no one will gonna know your name and things and that, okay. Yeah, you just kind of like a press record, and yeah. Now that's why I mentioned that people are really excited to record the artifact, okay, yeah. But the problem is that now when the people are really excited regarding about recording artifact, what will gonna happen is that they will kind of like simply reveal their privacy, reveal their kind of like a identity. Why? Because they are already in stress situation and they just wanted to let it out, okay. When I started recording artifact, I was at that time privacy was not even my concern. At that time, basically there is nothing really. I was not even thinking about the artifact app and things and privacy, nothing really at all. I abruptly mentioned so many people names and things and that and that. Okay. Today I'm kind of like a regret that I mentioned those people name, but still is this thing that at that time things happened, and I don't want that people should supposed to be make the mistake like I did. Because let me tell you one thing, what exactly happened, that stress that you have is legit, okay, fine. But the problem is that now when you blame that stress to somebody, then that is wrong. Why? Because of that na ki your manager is actually shouting at you is for some sort of reason, okay. It's for some sort of reason. It's not really that your manager is personally kind of like a somebody attack you on things and that. Nothing really at all. Okay. And basically when you mention that particular people name, then what is actually happened that you are kind of like a creating that particular person as a kind of like an enemy of yours. And when you consider that enemy of yours, then kind of like your subconscious mind is kind of like thinking that okay, this is kind of like an enemy. So if you mention the particular people name in the artifact, then problem is that now you are kind of like a thinking that this particular person is an enemy. Okay, let me tell you one thing how this actually happened. First, I have to go to susu, okay. I drink a lot of water, okay. Should I pause? I can pause. Yeah, I can pause. All right, yeah, now it's recording. Okay, so what was the kind of like a saying? I was saying that basically do not mention the other people name, okay, yeah. But why not? Yeah, why not? Why not? User shouldn't supposed to be mention other people name. Well, let me tell you one thing. It create two problem. First problem is that your privacy get compromised. That is for sure. Okay, yeah. But if you mention other people name, then what will gonna happen? Let me tell you one thing. Whatever the stuff that you said in the artifact, it became your reality. Okay, do you understand? This is very much essential. Whatever the stuff that you said in the artifact, it became your reality. If you mention that my boss is fuck, my manager is fuck, he's this, and you are kind of like specifically mention his name and things and that, what will gonna happen that in subconscious your mind, you are kind of like somebody creating hate around that particular person. When you see that particular person, you automatically get hate inside of it, and that is wrong. Why? Because of that na like basically you just know that particular person only one side. A boss may be kind of like a somebody that key telling you something and you are kind of like a generating hate inside of you, so that's why you are kind of like looking at from hate point of perspective, but that particular person is also really good person too. Okay, what I'm saying is that na ki if you mention the name, you are kind of like a more towards kind of like a hating that particular. Same thing happened with the love too. If you specifically mention I love this girl, I love this girl, you are loving more to that particular girl. Okay, yeah, you are just mentioning her name. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that ki it compromises the privacy. That is very big bot problem. And another thing is that na ki whatever you emotion attach with that particular person, that emotion increase, okay. So this is what kind of like a thing. That's why I am kind of like a somebody telling that he do not mention your name or any other people name or any other kind of like a somebody location or nothing really at all. Because and if you wanted to mention that particular name, just mention my boss or my friend or my something or my colleague or my things and that. Okay, do not mention specifically the name, because as I already mentioned. Okay, so that's why this warning screen actually appear, because when the people are really excited to talk, they really need to understand that what they shouldn't supposed to be say, and that's why that warning screen actually really helpful, not only for the user but as well as for me too. Why? Because of that na ki, let's just say a particular person kind of like a mention the name and things and that at the spur of the moment. Because when we record the artifact, we just talk, we just blunt it out, and in that particular situation we don't even realize that what should we supposed to be say. And sometimes we regret, like I also regret that stuff I said. So I don't want that. Okay, I don't want that. So that's why this kind of like a something that he understanding that what should you supposed to be, what shouldn't you supposed to be said, and that is very much essential. Okay, now that's why this warning sign actually appear. That countdown actually happens from 10 to 0 second, and after that you click on the understood. Okay, and after the understood, recording start. Okay, yeah. Now another thing, my artifact like basically what is actually happened, that key not every time people are actually stressed, not every time people are kind of like a somebody that key they just like basically what will gonna happen, that key like every single day is not really excited. Excited means what? Like something happened, your boss shouted at you, something happened. But most of the day, a normal day doesn't really happen at all. Nothing really at all. Every day is a kind of like a somewhat something normal day. You wake up, you went to the office, you come home, nothing really happened. Okay, yeah, just regular stuff. So if the regular stuff actually happened and if nothing really excited happened, then why should you supposed to be record artifact? Okay, so that is like basically when you press the record button, you are kind of like a thinking that ki, what do I supposed to be saying in recording artifact? Like this is kind of like only things that key, okay, what do I supposed to say? So that's why I have the question. Okay, a question is a kind of like a give the direction to the user that what they should supposed to be say. Okay, example is this thing that key like nothing really happened, a kind of like a normal day. Now I just had a dinner and I wanted to walk. I open up my mobile phone, open up my application, I wanted to record artifact, so I click on the recording artifact. Warning screen actually appear. I click on the understood. Then the question actually pop up at top half screen. That key, um, how what exactly experience when you first time you had a crush on somebody. Okay, yeah. Now basically this kind of like a question actually pop up every single time. Okay. And because of this question, it kind of like a gives you direction that what should you supposed to be talk. Okay, you can decide that what kind of like a question that you wanted to ask yourself, or let the kind of like a app will decide that what kind of like a question that app will kind of like a say. You have to decide, it's not really that. Okay, yeah, you have to decide or app will decide. Okay, yeah. So basically this question actually pop up. Now you don't really have any kind of like a reason to talk, but because of this question you get the reason. That key, okay, like a basically almost like a 10-year ago I have a kind of like a crush on somebody and things and that. So it's a one of the beautiful memory that you kind of like a somebody that fall in love first time and things and that you kind of like a mention this, mention that. Okay, obviously you do not mention other people name, but kind of like a telling your story, that what is actually happening and things and that. Because of when you tell your story, you feel good. You kind of like enlightened that memory again. You kind of like simply went into that zone again, and you are kind of like experiencing that thing again. Okay, yeah. Okay, let me tell you something. Okay, um one of my beautiful stuff that I am actually like one of the beautiful stuff that I record in my artifact is that ki I when I spend time with my friend. Okay, and when I'm kind of like a mention that this happened, we went to there, we did this, we did that, we did that. Okay, yeah. Obviously, this thing, when you are teenager, you are kind of like a more bounded towards your friend and things and that. But since you became older, like I am older, so right now I'm not really getting that much excited about talk about my friends. I'm really excited about the stuff that I'm wanted to achieve, my goals and things and that, because I'm evolved through that time. I'm recording for past 11 years, so it's my mind is actually shifted from stuff that is kind of like something just be fun. Right now I'm talking about something that kind of like a matter to me. Okay, yeah. But still, most of the people will kind of like using this artifact, or teenagers are kind of like somebody just a like a like a 14-15 year of people, and they are kind of like a talk about their friends and things and that. Talk it, but do not mention the name. Okay, yeah. Kind of like a things. This kind of like a question is very much essential. It kind of like a gives you direction that what should you supposed to be talk, and because of when you talk you feel good. Okay, I design such a question that it should supposed to be evoke a really happy emotion, because I wanted that people should supposed to feel happy after the record. Happiness is a very good emotion, and that actually kind of like a connect. Like I don't want to ask such a question that ki what is actually kind of like a biggest fear of your life. Now when you talk about this thing, then you are kind of like really scared. You might not get happy after you record artifact. I will gonna ask this question until and unless the particular person is really experienced, understand and aware of situation, and then I will ask such a question that are you scared of something, because sometimes now people need to know what's exactly their vulnerability, what's exactly that they don't know about something. Okay, yeah. But at the beginning I will ask such a question that kind of like a gives you happiness, gives you kind of like a feel really good, gives you kind of like a motivation, gives you kind of like a something that is self-help or with something like that, knowledge or things are not and that. I will ask such a question priority first. Okay, yeah. Also, user will kind of like ask the question themselves too. Like a user have kind of like somebody, they will create their own question bank, and they will kind of like in my application they will kind of like do this thing. It kind of like create the structure of recording artifact. Okay, yeah. Now after you record the artifact, after you kind of like record everything for almost like half an hour, you stop it. Okay, yeah. And then what is actually happen? You have two choices. Either you have to save your artifact in a draft, or you have to publish. Okay, yeah. Or review or publish. First of all, save the draft means like that the your artifact is actually saved in your draft. Okay, yeah. And you will kind of like a review and publish later. Or if you wanted to publish right now, so you have to review it. Now why does review is kind of like important? Okay, first of all is that key, if you save the draft, simple is that it's saved. Now if you wanted to review, then what is actually happen? You click on the review button and you have to listen your own artifact first. First of all, why do I kind of like let user listen their own artifact? Okay, why is that thing? It's very much essential. Like let me tell you one thing, even I recorded thousands of artifact, but I haven't listened that many of artifact. And I think that now that is a kind of like a biggest problem that I did. Like a basically one of the biggest thing that I never really understand the exact, like I never really kind of like experience the true form of artifact. When you listen your artifact, what is actually happened? Like I was kind of like started consuming my artifact by kind of like reading a book and things and that. But still, when you consume your artifact, you actually connect with yourself. As I mentioned, when you connect with yourself more, this is where you actually connect with yourself more, because previously when you record the artifact you are kind of like talking yourself, but when you listen your artifact, then you are kind of like somebody listening your artifact from kind of like your point of perspective, that am I talking really good. You are kind of like judging your own artifact. You are kind of like judging your own artifact. Now this part is a kind of like a bit really uncomfortable. Why? If you are an early user, you kind of like a feel uncomfortable to listen your own voice, and it kind of like a feel like, oh fuck, things that okay, and you might gonna delete, you might think, oh my god, I didn't record, because this is what kind of like a things people are kind of like a really like a feel really awkward to listen their own voices. But if you kind of like a being really continue, you will kind of like experience, then you are used to with this thing, then you are kind of like judging what is at least stuff that you said. Why does review is actually really essential? Because of that, at the spur of the moment, people might gonna mention the name and things and that even after the warning screen actually showing to them, people might gonna mention some sort of things. Okay, yeah, they will not gonna mention the name, but they will kind of like mention something that probably kind of like a privacy will gonna compromise. Like example is this thing that key, I am from all girl college. So basically her accent is a Punjabi, and she's actually says that ki, I am from all girl college. So the particular user who kind of like a listening her artifact, that particular user will kind of like a search that ki, she is from Punjab and she is from all girl college. So try to figure it out how many all girl college are actually exist in the Punjab. Probably maybe kind of like a less than 10. Yeah, privacy will get compromised. Okay, so this is what it is. So basically is this thing, it's not really that key just kind of like a somebody that key remove the name and things and that, but kind of like a things that key people might gonna privacy compromise and things and that. But why are you kind of like a thinking about privacy too much? Like why not kind of like a let the people kind of like a said something that they want and things and that. Well, I'm gonna ask question, if you kind of like a mention something about your life, and do you share that information to other people, that knowing that they will not gonna know your name? You will not gonna do that. I am recording artifact for past 11 year. I don't really have courage to kind of like somebody that key tell my friend, dude, I'm kind of like a recording artifact for things and that. No, I didn't really have that courage. Why? Because of that key artifact is a kind of like a very private collection of yours, private collection of your thoughts and things and that. And obviously you will kind of like mention to us such a thing that kind of like a really companion of yours, girlfriend, significant other and things and that. Not, you will not gonna mention this thing with your friend. You will gonna kind of like share your artifact but not gonna mention your name, because like this is what kind of like your identities you always wanted to kept hidden, and that is what kind of like a privacy is very much essential. Because like let me tell you one thing now. Okay, there will be millions of people will kind of like listen your artifact. They will kind of like consider you so many ways and things, they will try to figure it out you. Because let me tell you one thing now, when other people kind of like listen your artifact, they actually connect with yourself more. Yeah, this is kind of like a things, because we are human and we are actually connecting with other humans. That is very much like it's kind of like a things, we actually connect with other humans even if we don't know that particular person, but we kind of like a wanted to know that particular person. Why? Because we are human, this is what we wired. Our evolution is actually kind of like come from when we are connect with each other, we evolve together. Okay, yeah, that's why we evolved through like basically in the beginning we can't run faster, we can't fly, we cannot have a spur to kind of like a something that can survive in wilderness and cold. We can't. How do we supposed to survive? By together. When we survive, when we got together, our survival rate is actually higher. So that's why humans are kind of like started living together, so that their survival rate is kind of like a really higher. So when they live together, they actually connect with themselves. They share their thoughts, things, emotion, development, growth, stories. Everything happened through connection, and that's why we all are humans. Like why you are kind of like listening this artifact? Ask this question. It's been almost like a 38 minute, you are kind of like a listening my artifact. I'm talking like basically what exactly is this thing, what exactly that you wanted to, nothing really. I don't know why are you kind of like listening this artifact. Because we are humans and we are actually connect with yourself more. So that is actually happen like a, while you are kind of like a somebody watching this video, you are kind of like a judging me in every possible perspective, that ki how may I look, how is that this thing, what is that background and things and that and that and that. Like I mentioned some sort of kind of like a couple of fumble words, that am I okay, I okay me, like basically basically this kind of like a word I mentioned multiple times, so you kind of like a find a flaws when I said something, and that is okay, that is good, that is things okay. Yeah, but the problem is that the basically is this thing that ki right now you can know me, so you can kind of like a finding of flaws and things and that, but if you know, if like basically is this thing that na ki if you are listening your own artifact, then what is actually happened that ki you will not to kind of like a you will kind of like a really uncomfortable to kind of like a thinking that, oh, I have this flaw, I kind of like a mention one word multiple times, and this is kind of like a things. So review is very much essential for kind of like a privacy purposes, for understanding you and things and that. If you kind of like a mention the your name, you will kind of like a trimmed out that particular segment name or kind of like a things, or maybe you might think that ki my privacy will gonna compromise, then you can remove that particular part. Okay, and after you remove, after you listen almost like a 95% of your entire artifact and you are really comfortable that ki okay, I'm really good, then you publish the artifact. It's very much essential that user should supposed to be listen their own artifact. Because of that na ki at the spur of the moment they might gonna mention something, but that is one of the biggest bottleneck, is that ki people don't want to listen their own artifact, and that is the true. So basically is this thing that na ki people will kind of like publish the artifact more if they don't really have a review, but if they have a review they will kind of like publish the artifact less. But this is very much essential because people should supposed to be kind of like a judge their own artifact first. That is important, because if they are not kind of like a listening their own artifact, then yeah, they have to be listened, they have to be listened for privacy concern and things and that. So this is my entire pipeline. This is how actually happening. The person who kind of like a record artifact, things happen. Alright. Obviously I will kind of like make sure my pipelines kind of like as much as improve, as much as smooth, as much as kind of like a better if possible. Okay. There are so many features that I didn't really add at the beginning, like a editing feature. Like I mentioned that in the review you can edit and trim out that particular segment. At the beginning I will not going to implement that feature. Why? Because I don't really have that many resources. I'm not an Android developer. I am kind of like a building application through Android Studio Agent. So there is a lot of kind of like a things that like first of all I just have to understand that people response and things and that, and then after that, okay, at the beginning I will kind of like make it my application as much as lighter as possible. So that's why I'm not kind of like adding kind of like edit feature at the beginning. All right, but in the future I will. There are also another kind of like a process pipeline too, regarding about AI, regarding about voice cloning, regarding about things and that. But this is the one of the important pipeline. These are the other pipelines are not so that much important, but I will gonna mention in next artifact. All right, this is it. Thank you.